You should only shoot JPEG. What? It takes 24 hours to import photos in the Lightroom? Seriously? So no, I'm not getting into the RAW versus JPEG argument today. There's two guys battling it out right now on the internet, on YouTube. I love it. Keep battling. All right, so a couple weeks ago, Adobe just released Adobe Lightroom Classic CC, which is different than Adobe CC. That's their mobile cloud iPhone, iPad editing program, cloud solution program. Today we're gonna be talking about how to speed up Adobe Lightroom Classic CC, which is for their desktop users. I'm primarily a desktop user. I used to like picking up my iPad and editing photos on that and going back to my desktop and working on them, but I'm not primarily a cloud user yet. I haven't used Lightroom CC, so I don't want to say anything bad about it. I'm just primarily a desktop guy. So I want to give you guys some useful tips on how you can speed up your Lightroom Classic CC application. So somebody made a comment that it takes 24 hours to import photos. I've imported thousands of photos, 5,000s of photos, tens of thousands of photos into Lightroom, and it's taken minutes, honestly, like 10 minutes tops. So 24-hour imports, all those things, we're gonna talk about that and how to speed those things up. All right, so I use macOS Sierra, which is also my last name, but there's no tie there. I'm not on High Sierra yet, so I have not upgraded to High Sierra. I would usually recommend that your OS and your application is updated to the fullest extent, especially when working with new applications. Some of my friends have upgraded and it's cost them. So I'm on macOS Sierra and I'm using the latest version of Adobe Lightroom Classic CC. So let's talk about importing and storing your photos first. So where you store your photos and where you import them from is gonna have a huge impact on speed. So when I first store my photos, I back them up to a larger hard drive. Not a fast hard drive, but a larger hard drive. Usually I kick them to the cloud or I store them on a local desktop such as this. So this is the Seagate Backup Plus Hub for Mac. It's $109 on Amazon. I'll put the link below, and this is a 4 terabyte version of it. I'll usually back up my photos to something like this just to have a copy of. This isn't my main backup. This isn't my permanent backup. This is not the drive I import from. This is just a backup. So I usually store them in something like this. For some of you guys who don't have a backup solution, this is a cheap backup solution. My next step would be taking the photos from the larger drive and backing them up to something like this. So once my photos are backed up to the larger drive, I usually transfer a copy to an SSD drive. Now, this is where Lightroom becomes really, really fast. What I basically do is I buy these little hubs. They can be either Thunderbolt or USB 3. Some of you guys don't have Thunderbolt, so a USB 3 solution would work for you. And I pick the drive that I like. I usually work with these Samsung drives. This is a 256 Samsung Evo. There's cheaper solutions. They won't be as fast, but they still be a lot faster than a traditional drive. So not only will I make a copy of the photos on the SSD, but I'll also store the catalog on this drive. The SSD drives are so much faster for editing, opening the files, rendering the files, all of that becomes so much faster, and it's a cheap, easy solution. For a lot of you guys where speed matters, this is the quickest way. It is a little pricey, but it's the quickest way to make Lightroom a lot faster. Again, I'll put the links below. That's using the SSD drives for importing and working in Lightroom. Again, I wanna stress, I'm not using the big traditional drive to edit and render my photos in Lightroom. I'm not importing from that drive. I'm importing from the SSD drives in order to gain that speed. The Thunderbolt drive tends to be a little faster than USB 3, but both of them are a great solution over a traditional hard drive. Just a little side note, these were never made to work with SSD drives. They won't recommend it, so don't freak out when you buy these two things and you're like, it says it won't work. It'll work, I promise. So this isn't a speed tip, but this is some fatherly advice. I back up to something like this. I import and edit from an SSD drive, but you should really have your files stored up at least 3 times. 2 times is good, but having a third backup like in the cloud is a really good idea. So again, if you want your files to be safe, have them backed up at least 3 times. I have all my photos backed up at least 3 times, 1 locally, 1 on an edit drive, and 1 in the cloud. Some people would say you need even more than that. I feel good with that solution. All right, so let's open Lightroom and speed this thing up. Here we go. All right, so here we go. I'm in Adobe Lightroom Classic CC, which is not Adobe Lightroom CC, which is their cloud-based application. I'm working within their desktop application, which is Lightroom Classic CC, the newest version of Lightroom that's out. And again, we're talking about speed. In this catalog, I have 8,317 photos, not JPEGs, not medium, they're not JPEGs. They are 8,317 raw files. It didn't take 24 hours for them to import. No, and no means is my computer crashing. This is a large catalog. On this day, I ended up taking 3 shooters to this wedding, and just because of that, I ended up with so many photos. They like to take a lot of photos. Second and third shooters, if you've ever taken them to a wedding, they get really, really excited about shooting. So I ended up with 8,317 raw photos. No big deal, Lightroom can handle it. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about in speeding up your Lightroom, or speeding up Lightroom, excuse me, is opening up catalogs. So a lot of users, what I see them do for the first time is they get Adobe, they get really, really excited, they open up the catalog and they start importing photos. Now, the problem with that is Adobe gives you basically a default catalog to work within, which is like Lightroom 2017. It's going to create a default catalog. No big deal. But as you get down the road, importing photos into the same catalog over and over and over can get really, really clunky, and it could really slow Lightroom down quite a bit. So what I like to do is I like to create new catalogs for every job that I do. Now you can create collections. So if you have favorites, or if you have moments that you want to separate into collections inside one catalog, that's totally notable. Like I'm saying that you can do that. If you want to import multiple jobs into one catalog, I'm just really saying that's not the best idea. Now, if your shoots are small, like if you're doing headshots and you want to create different collections for a headshot, that's totally fine, I understand. But again, to get the maximum speed out of Lightroom, creating a catalog for every headshot, family shoot, wedding, etc., has been the best practice for me. And really, I've seen Lightroom just increase in speed since I've been working in this flow. So what you're going to do is you're going to go into New Catalog. If you're a new user, you just go to File, New Catalog. And then you're just gonna, so let's say we're doing a fashion shoot today. So I'm gonna say fashion _, it's fall. So I'll do fall just for example. And then today's date. So I would go 11/17, or sorry, it's 11/17/17. There we go, it is. So 11/17/17, I would create this. Again, I would save it, not on my desktop, not on my computer's hard drive, but in one of my SSD drives. Here you can see I have 3 SSD drives. Again, I wasn't blowing smoke and trying to sell you something that doesn't work. I believe in editing off these SSD drives. I store all my files on larger drives and on the cloud, so I usually have 3 backups all the time. But when I'm editing, I like to work off of these SSD drives. So I would not only put the files and the photographs on the SSD drives, but I'm also putting the catalog on the SSD drive. And the reason why is because Lightroom's creating a lot of metadata. And so in that metadata, you're having to load all that at, really, really fast, and it's coming from the hard drive. And so if you create the catalog on one of your SSD drives, it's going to speed up the performance of Lightroom quite a bit. So again, for every job that I'm creating, I'm going to go into File, New Catalog. I'm going to name it whatever I want, and I'm going to dump it into one of my SSD drives, and I'm going to work off of that. Does that mean I'm going to create, that's going to live there forever? No, this is just my editing drive. I'm using my SSDs as my editing drive. When I'm done with this job, I'm going to store it in the cloud. I'm going to store it on a larger server and on one of my local hard drives as well. So again, I know SSD can be really, really expensive. I'm just using this to work off of. So it's really, and for most of my files, 256 is, big enough. And, those are $100. I'm not saying $100 is cheap. I'm just saying if you're wanting to get a really quick upgrade, this is a fantastic way to do it. And creating a new catalog is the start to that. The second thing I want to talk about is once you get going and you're working within Lightroom, I see a lot of people go right into the develop module, and they're picking their photos or curating their photos from the develop module. And this can get slow too, because it's loading all of the information. Here you can see it's actually not that bad. And this is in develop. And I'm working off an SSD drive. But when you're in here and you're just going through these photos, and there's a lot of photos from second and third shooters. And these are the raw files, guys. You're seeing them as is. As you go through them, it is a lot slower versus in the library module. If you're coming in here and you're flagging photos, it's a lot easier. You can scroll through these a lot faster. As you can see in any mode, I can get right to the photo that I want, and it's not slow at all. You can see how much faster it is in the library module. So again, I just want to, you know, really just punch a point here and saying, if you're just, for the first time, if you're just working through and picking out your photos, picking out your favorites from a wedding or from a, you know, a sequence, working in the library module is a lot faster than working in the develop module. Now, when you're ready to edit, then I totally get it. Working in the develop module is a lot easier. Once you've picked your photos, then you can jump over to the develop module. And if you have an SSD drive, this isn't so bad at all. So again, these are raw files. Just let me pull the info up so you know that I'm not blowing smoke into your face. If that's what you, I don't know if that's what you say. Is it blowing smoke into your face? But here you go. So you can see that these are CR2 files. So again, it's not super slow, and Lightroom is importing all the metadata when I'm working in the develop module. So that this is a really fast way again to work. So if you're looking to flag files, pick your favorites, work in the library module. If you're starting to work on your files and manipulate them, then obviously the develop module works. Again, Lightroom is really fast. Now, the third thing that you can do to speed up, and a lot of people miss this step, and I'm constantly doing this, is you go File, Optimize Catalog. Now, if you're optimizing, if you have all these files in here, and you can't really optimize collections, is the point I'm trying to make, but you can optimize the catalog. And again, all the if the collection is in the catalog, technically it will be optimized. But this is, again, not creating sub-collections and just working in one catalog is a lot faster. So it says your catalog was optimized on 11/17 at 10:45 a.m. was basically when I opened it. If it has been running slowly and you haven't optimized it recently, optimizing again may improve its performance. Of course, I'm going to optimize. It says it may take several minutes. Optimize. It's doing its thing right now, and it's done. So again, in the SSD drive, optimizing your catalog is really fast. It speeds this process up, but not only does it do that, it also speeds up working within Lightroom again. So your files get faster, your files become faster to load in the library module and in the develop module. So again, this is a really fast way to work. Make sure if you're picking your photos, you're picking them in library module. When I say picking, curating, cooling, whatever you want to say, if you're flagging photos, if you're looking for your best shots, work in library module. If you're starting to develop, work in develop module. And then this also narrows down. Once you pick your favorites, you're able to narrow down. Say you've got them down to your favorites and you've starred them, you're working with a lot less files. And so the develop module is going to work a lot faster. So if you're creating something for a blog or for your website, then this is the way I want to work. And you guys can see here that these are all CR2s, and I'm able to go through this really fast. If you're working in your Lightroom catalog and it's slow, again, try to optimize it. Try SSD. Try all these solutions, because I really feel that you're gonna really see the benefits from working in this way. I hope this helped. I hope that you can optimize your catalogs for the fastest speeds possible. Again, this isn't me nerding out or doing something that, you know, that is ridiculous and above beyond which is even needed. This is just a great way to work. I know for a lot of you guys that are shooting weddings or shooting big giant catalogs, speed is huge. And so working off these SSDs, optimizing your catalogs, working in individual catalogs, creating new catalogs for every job is a great way to speed up your workflow.
All right, last and final tip, make sure you drink more coffee. It'll speed everything up, I promise. All right, I hope that helped you. Happy Friday. Subscribe. Thank you guys for watching.